Israel. I'm very thankful you're joining me again. And about a week ago, I posted a word explanation. I put these little cards every once in a while onto Facebook with word explanations. Instead of having to look things up in a dictionary or a lexicon, I give some definitions for certain words. And I wrote a specific card for the words ani and anochi and what they actually mean. Ani and anochi are actually the same word, and they're just, I would argue, variations of the same word. Pronouns in Hebrew are a little bit funny. Their history is a little bit peculiar because some of the history of how they developed is not completely understood. And ani and anochi basically mean I. They can also be used as I am, because in Hebrew we don't really use the dummy verb am, is, are. If something is, then it is. If I am, then I am. I don't have to repeat these parts of speech. However, there is an am, is, and are, and was, and will be, and so on through the verb haya, which has different variations to it, and so on. So it did spark a conversation. I am actually having difficulty to completely understand what the discussion is about because there's some context I'm missing. And unfortunately, the people having this discussion are not really explaining their positions. They're just arguing in something I have to openly admit I don't really have any understanding in. But there was a message sent to me where I was asked to explain the I am in different places in the Bible. And the thing is that really I am can be expressed in two different ways. One, which is the very famous I am, which appears in Exodus, Shemot 3, Gimel stands for 3, Yud Daled with the two little lines in between is just a marker for a number, means 14, Yud is 10, Daled is 4, and the famous statement, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, which is, or Ehyeh, as some people pronounce it more in the Spanish tradition, but amongst the Masorites this would have been Ehyeh. The Hey has a silent shva, which produces an influx of air. So he says, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, which means I am that I am, if you read it one way, or I will be that which I will be. Essentially, it basically says I exist, which is probably the original meaning of the Tetragrammaton. And what's actually being said here is, in some translations, I am that I am. Now, on the other hand, the other I am that exists can be, for example, traced to Exodus 20, Kaf is 20, Bet is 2, so Exodus 20 verse 2, where it says Anochi, which also translates as I am. It's the self-identification, I am this particular individual, followed by Tetragrammaton, which means I am the Lord, or Anochi Adonai Elohecha. And these are actually two distinctive words. One is a verb, Ehyeh, the other one is Anochi. So the problem is that when you translate to English one of these forms, Haya, Ehyeh, Yihiyeh, and so on, or the word Anochi or Ani, what you've actually stepped into is a problem that they both translate to I am. And therefore, if I understood correctly the question posed to me and some of what I was able to understand from the discussion, that I am in a lot of situations has been associated with the name of God. Now, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, Ehyeh does seem to clearly be a type of play on the Tetragrammaton, which is based on the root Haya. And by saying Ehyeh, it says I will be, or I am, which doesn't matter. In both references it talks about being there, existing, and so on. So he is the being, or he is the one who exists. And this is why it's very important to see the difference between Ehyeh or Haya versus Anochi, where Anochi is a pronoun. Ehyeh is a verb that can be used as a copula and also a will be and so on, but it depends how it's used within a verse or clause. And in the situations where any of these words is translated as I am, you actually have to go, unfortunately, have to go back into the Hebrew and check which one is being used. But not every time you see ani or anochi does it refer to only God, or is a way of saying the name or something like that, because that was one of the other things that came up. That people thought that maybe Anochi is only for God, Ani is only for man. And this is not true. There actually are places where God says Ani, and he refers to himself in the form of Ani. I think there's a verse in Isaiah, Ani hu menachimchem, I am the one who comforts you. But then sometimes God also uses Anochi, and then you also find Ani for people and Anochi for people as well. So it's a pronoun. It just is I am, and it refers to either person or God, and it just depends on the context. So this has always been the issue, the context. If you ignore the context and you ignore what things are, how things are really used, then you end up with different weird theological ideas and things like that. So I hope this clarifies some of the question, and hopefully, God willing, you'll join me again in the future. Kol tov.